Welcome to the SNN Network virtual conference and to this panel. Again, I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and the panel you are about to hear is titled The Importance of Women Representation on Small, Micro, Nano-Cap Executive Teams and Boardrooms. We wanted to put this panel together for many reasons. The main one being our theme for this event is representation and making sure that all voices and perspectives are not only heard, but very much so considered. And along those lines of in consideration, that means representation on executive teams and boardrooms. And I think we can all agree that there is a severe lack of women representation in this regard in the small, micro, and nano cap space. So I wanted to have we wanted to have a panel to really talk about why that is and what we can do to be better, because we can be better. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panel. Joining us as the moderator is Luisa Ingargiola. She is the CFO of Avalon GloboCare. Also joining us on this panel is Bhullar. She is the CFO of ElectraMeccanica, as well as Sue Ozdemir. She is the CEO of Exro Technologies. And with that, I'll throw it to Luisa. Thank you for doing this, and yeah, enjoy.
Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you for having us. I think this is a very timely panel. I think, as everyone can see from the media, there's a lot of movement now to really expand diversity in both the executive and the board level. So I think the selection of having this panel is really perfect timing. In terms of my background, I'm currently the CFO of Avalon GloboCare. We're a NASDAQ-listed biotech company. We're focused on cellular therapy and cellular diagnostic systems. I'm pretty excited about some of the things we're doing with major institutions like MIT and Weill Cornell University. In terms of my background, I've spent about 20 years of my career on capital markets working on Wall Street. I've had various roles as CFO or audit chair of several New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ companies. And I've had a lot of great experiences working as a woman in these capacities. So I'm pretty excited to share my experiences with the panel. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bhullar to introduce herself and her background.
Thanks, Luisa, and thanks, Bobby, for having us. It's great to be on this panel with these amazing women. As you said, I serve as the Chief Financial Officer and Executive Board Director for ElectraMeccanica, which is a manufacturer and designer of electric vehicles. We are listed on NASDAQ under the symbol SOLO, S-O-L-O. I've got over 25 years of diversified experience in publicly traded companies and private companies where I've either been an executive or a board member. Some of those industries include technology, they include automotive, manufacturing, e-commerce, blockchain, resource, marine, energy, and also health and wellness. Among some of the skill sets that I bring to the table is being able to do IPOs, initial public offerings, reverse takeovers, financial and strategic planning, capital markets in terms of fundraising and banking relationships. Lots to do with on the IR, investor relations side, as well as startups, business expansions, M&A, corporate governance, internal control. So a whole slew of skill sets there. And in doing so, I've been able to also hold various positions in companies. Some of those is also being president for Risk Management Association of BC, and currently, obviously, as the CFO and director for ElectraMeccanica. I also have two of my own private companies that I'm a founder of. One of them is an e-commerce natural supplements business called Kismet Nutrients, and the other one is a financial consulting company that I founded called BKB Management. I've got my designations in both accounting and risk management. Thanks, and I'll hand it over to Sue now.
Thanks, Bal. My name is Sue Osdemer. I'm the CEO of Exro Technologies. I joined Exro in September of 2019, and I've spent my career in the industrial electric motor space, most recently with GE Motors and GE Industrial Motors, a roll-on company, as the CEO of that business unit. Exro is traded in the US on the OTCQB under XRO, and we are a powertrain electronics technology company, and what we do is a new type of electric gearing in the power electronics. And I'm just super happy to be here and to be on this panel with everybody. So thank you for having us, Robert.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate both of you taking the time to do this for us, and I'm excited about what the outcome is going to show. I think the first question I'll turn over to Val is, why do you think your experiences and observations from your perspective, why is it important for women to be in executive positions and boardrooms, and what do they bring to the table from that perspective?
Thanks, Luisa. From my perspective, I believe that the executive team and the board members need to have balance. And by providing balance, I think you make much more informed decisions in terms of coming together in different ways, different perspectives of what you can talk about. So, you know, one person might have one way of coming up to a solution, but, you know, I think it's always important to have that group discussion and being able to talk about the decisions that need to be made and how you get to them. So I find that as a female, we also provide calmness sometimes to heated discussions as well. I mean, for example, on my executive team, we usually will have now it's either Zoom or a call on the cell phones. But what we do is we actually talk about, okay, here's the situation, you know, how can we manage this? What are we going to do? What are the next steps that we need to take a look at, not only from a strategic aspect, but from an operational or from a financial strategy aspect. So the way we come about doing and getting to these decisions is about talking about it and asking these different questions and coming up with the answers and then getting to that informed decision. So I always go to, a balance is quite important. And I think we all bring different perspectives of how some of those decisions can be made.
Great. Thank you. Sue, same question for you. What is it about, from your perspective, that is so important about having diversity in women in executive level and boardrooms?
Right. I think that especially as you get into a more diverse boardroom, then I think you start to have a lot of different experiences. And I think that beyond the educational value, I think those experiences are what can help us to really be able to react to a lot of the things that come into an executive boardroom that maybe are unplanned or unanticipated. Having that different level of experiences, you know, men and women, young and old, the different experiences, I think really allows you to think outside of your own self.
Great answer too. I guess I'll answer that question as well. From my perspective, if we just take it to the simplest level, a company is trying to attract customers and also inform shareholders. And a good portion of that demographic, both customers and shareholders, are females. So I think it's very important for a company to just take a step back and say, okay, we need to make sure that we have women representation at all levels to ensure that our decision-making, our strategy, our plans for the future in terms of product rollouts and marketing material and just basic sales outreach is geared not only to men, but also to women. And I think women are able to really bring that perspective at various levels. So that's, I think, another way to look at it as well. So the next question I'll throw to Sue is, what about your background brought you to this level? I think there's a lot of young women out there that look at women such as us in high-level executive position and they think, I could never get there. I don't know how I would ever get there. So what is it about your background and your experiences in your career that has brought you to such a great position?
Right. I think I've been fortunate. I'm surrounded by a lot of good family and friends who have been there to help me and to support me to get here. I grew up in the industry, so for me, it was kind of just working hard and taking those positions. And I think a lot of it just comes, I always like to tell younger females that are coming up, just be confident in yourself. You know, don't get too caught up in what somebody says or thinks, just make your path and keep walking it. And don't let other things distract you off of that. And what works for you may not work for everybody else. And don't be afraid to lean on people and say, I've had a bad day. And, what do I do to get through to the next one?
Yeah, that's a great answer. How about you, Val? What do you think from your experiences brought you to where you are today?
For me, it all started with the support of my parents, who have always been there and emphasized education and to go after your dreams and just be passionate about it and just don't look back, go forward. And so it's all about believing in myself and also pushing myself constantly, setting those goals, continually creating new ones, and at a very aggressive pace. I mean, that's been my demeanor from day dot. So I thrive on adrenaline. I thrive on the rush of achieving goals and then getting the next one, making new ones, thinking outside of the box, and being able to reflect upon my experiences to whatever position I'm in. I think it's really valuable to always learn from what you've done in the past and always bring it forward. And that way it just becomes bigger in terms of the growth potential and what you can do and how you create and make different decisions based on your experiences and how you've applied them in so many different roles, and whether it's at an executive level or as a board level or in any other position. But for me, it wasn't just about the work. It was also creating some form of a balance for my 3 amazing kids who are now in their own career paths. I was a single mom when my kids were really young, you know, from the ages of 3, 4, and 6. So I had great support from my parents and my grandparents, who allowed me to, by doing that, it allowed me to further my career. And along with providing for my kids, I also suffered some pretty significant health battles. One in my early 30s where I had a tumor in my thyroid, a cancerous tumor. And so I had surgery for that. And then I had some other surgeries in my early 40s dealing with my health. And so what I take to that is that I looked at those challenges and I turned them around and I made them my strengths. I made myself stronger. I basically did not let those barriers be a roadblock to where I need to get to. So it was always about pursuing and being able to be a good role model, not only for my for my kids, but for others out there. That the only limitation that you have is the one in your mind. And if you allow that limitation to be your roadblock, that's where you're going to stop, right? And it's about pursuing yourself and being able to create a journey, a roadmap for yourself. So the way that I look at it is, you know, we're all on this road. That road is never going to be straight. There's always going to be curves, and it's all about how you can maneuver yourself and stay on that road to lead you to your own success that you want to. And I always see it as life as being a journey as opposed to a destination. So it's a little bit deep on that, but
Yeah, no, I mean, that's you overcame a lot of challenges, so that's amazing. I guess I'll answer that question as well. I think I learned very early on in my career that I had to be the most prepared person in the room. I typically was the only female in the room, and that's just the way it is on Wall Street, which I'm fine with. But I learned that I better be the most prepared person and understand my audience and hit it out of the park every time. And I think back to the very first roadshow I did on Wall Street, which is essentially like a Shark Tank where you go out meeting to meeting and try to attract shareholders to your company. And I went into the first meeting of my first roadshow. I was very nervous. I had prepared extensively in every possible area. And the person on the other side was a gentleman, but he grilled me intensely for a long time and was actually quite rude through a lot of it. And when I left the meeting, the banker said to me, you know what? I've been on 400 roadshows. I have never seen anyone grilled the way you were just grilled ever. And I've never seen anyone more prepared. And he reflected on the fact that he thought perhaps it had something to do with the fact that I was a woman. And I'm not sure if it did or it didn't. But I learned that day that I was never going to let, you know, anyone intimidate me or knock me down or make me feel like I can't achieve anything I want to achieve. So from there, I've just realized, and I accept it, and I don't feel unhappy about it. I just realized that I have to be almost the hardest working person there, the most prepared. And with that, I'm able to get a lot of buy-in from men as well as women. So I think that that's really what I've learned along the way that's got me here. And the other thing I've learned is it's all about your network and your relationships. I think that every single person in your life, if you treat them with respect and you really endear yourself to them and try to understand their side of their life or their story or their business needs, they become a lifelong network. And maybe 5 years from now, they'll recommend you for another position or another opportunity. And I'm frequently referred to companies for audit chair positions, for CFO positions, for CEO positions, and I'm honored by that. And it's always coming from a network that I've had for 20 years. So I would encourage women to work hard, be the most prepared person in the room, and value every single person in your network, all the way down to the person that's helping clean your office, because someday they could be your boss. So that's how I'd answer that question. So with that, I think it would be really helpful for the women watching this, especially the young women that hopefully will watch this. And I'll turn it over to Sue. Sue, what do you think we can do, the three of us, to help change the narrative in the future? What are things that other women in executive positions can do to change the narrative so that in the future there are more opportunities in these industries that are typically governed by men? What is your suggestion on that?
I think the first thing is, I think we put too much pressure on ourselves. And, to tell young women that you don't need to put that much pressure on yourself. There isn't this great work-life balance all the time. Some days you are going to be where you want to be home with your kids, but you may be at a meeting, and there may be another day where you're with your family and you're going to miss something at work. And that's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about that. You're doing the best you can in all of that, and surrounding yourself with a good support system. Coming up through the GE leadership program, and it wasn't just geared to women, but I really took it as a female coming up. They said, don't be afraid to lean on people when you need some help. And that's not because you're failing at something. So I think a lot of people, a lot of young ladies that I've talked to always say, my kids are great, awesome children, 20 and 18 now. And how did you do that through work? And there's not an answer. There's not an answer. What worked for me may not work for somebody else. And just don't be thinking that it's one or the other. You can have a balance. You can make it work. You can go after what you want and still have the other things on your personal life as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Val, do you have the same perspective, a similar perspective on that?
I do. I think if I allude to what Sue was saying, it is, I think it's difficult as a female sometimes to try to provide that balance, because you're also the caretaker of the kids, and then you've got the home to take care of, and you have your career as well. And I think sometimes it's difficult in relationships where that time management and that work balance. I don't think I have too much of a work balance lifestyle. I think it's more work than life. But I also enjoy what I do, right? I really love what I do. And so I think some of the things, as Sue was saying, it's the pressure of trying to be all things all at the same time. And where that balance is, I think it's different for every different individual. And so I still have a tough time trying to figure out what work-life balance is, because most of mine is work, right, as opposed to on the life side, just because of the nature of where the company is right now and what I'm involved in. And so I would say that you've got to do what's right for yourself, and you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to put that roadmap out of where you want to be, what you want to do, and how you're going to get there. And so if you have that, and you can imagine yourself in the roles that you want to be in, or the role that you want to be in, and physically see yourself in that, then you're going to achieve it. And especially when it comes to young girls, like, don't limit yourself just because you want to have children, you want to get married, you want to do this, you want to do that. There's no reason why you can't have all. And that's what you have to put in your mind, and whoever you're with needs to also support that as well. But you know, from my perspective, I think it's looking to do what you want to do and being able to do that. It comes with you first. It's all going to come with you within before you can do anything for anyone else. If you're not happy with yourself and what you're going to do and how you're going to get to that, I think that's important. Otherwise, it's your building blocks are going to fall apart. You've got to have that strong foundation.
Those are obviously great answers. From my perspective, I have similar thoughts on it. I think that especially women in executive positions, we try to come across kind of hard and superwoman to our coworkers and our colleagues and other women. And in reality, we all have a work-life balance. We all, those of us that have been, you know, have children at home, you know, we're obviously very stressed about spending time at work, traveling versus being with the children. We all, I'm sure, Belle and I have joked many times about different stories of our children and things they've done when we're trying to work. And so all those things I think make us more human, and we just need to accept those and realize that we're all doing the best we can in terms of what we can do to help other women. I try to mentor young women whenever I can, give advice, speak at the local high school or just get involved in the community whenever possible, give career opportunities to women, qualified women, and I think all of that adds up, and just continue to tell the story with our colleagues at an executive level and board level as to why we add value, and show them exactly why we add value and why they need us. And step by step, I think we'll achieve great things, and we'll bring a lot of diversity to these levels with all sorts of different age groups and ethnicities and women, men. So I think there's starting to be a major trend in this area. So I'm excited to be part of it. And with that, I think, Bobby, we've concluded the panel discussion, unless Sue or Val, there's anything else you want to add that we're missing? No?
I'm good, but thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
have a couple questions if y'all don't mind answering.
Oh, please.
So there's a lot of investors watching this right now. A lot. I mean, I hope a lot. You know, I hope a lot are watching this. And what can investors do from their perspective? Let's say when they're evaluating a company for a potential investment, can they look at what can they do to make sure that all public companies, or just all companies in general, are making sure that there is more women representation, and not just on executive teams, but also boardrooms?
Right, of course. I can start and I'll pass it to my colleagues. I think that they have a choice in what company they're going to invest in, what products they're going to buy, and where they're going to spend their money. And as a public company, it's available to them who the executive team is, who's on the board, and they should make those choices. And there is a major U.S. investment bank that has made a decision that they will not do an IPO without a female on the board. So I think that says a lot. The reason they made that decision is that they found statistically that companies that are run by boards that are inclusive of diversity and women are far more successful than companies that do not. That are not inclusive and do not diversify. So I would recommend that investors take a hard look at who's running these companies and what their background is, and what kind of diversity they have. So, but Val and Sue, of course, I'm sure you have your own opinions on that as well.
I think you said that really well, Luisa, and I totally agree with you. I think just the best thing they can do is when they're doing their due diligence, take a look at the board, take a look at the principles of the company and the culture of the company, and make sure that, you know, they don't just have a placeholder that's a woman on the board, but that it's something that they do as a company in their ESG policies and in their policies as a company, to make sure that they're going to continue doing that. And I think once they've done that, then the rest will speak for itself.
Yeah.
I agree with both Sue and Luisa on that. And there is definitely the due diligence aspect that investors need to do the due diligence on each of the management team members and look them up, and the board members. Also, what is the company all about? And like Sue was saying, making sure that the female is not just a placeholder, as well as taking a look at their ESG policies. I mean, their social governance aspect. You know, a lot of that is now really shifting towards board diversity and also on management. And they're really taking a hard look at that. Like, where is that all sitting on this? And so that's a significant part in terms of what we're looking at as well. And I think we're quite fortunate on our company where we do have great representation of females and ethnicities, both on the executive team and also on the board. And that's something that we take seriously. Especially right now, I'm looking at our ESG report for 2020, and you know, I'm glad that we'll be able to fit a lot of what we need based on NASDAQ rules and standards that we'll be able to really fit that component, which has become very, very important, along with the employee health and safety aspect.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's interesting. When we were planning this panel, we were all talking to ourselves. I guess this has been something that's been thrown around so much in small micro nano caps is like, look, we just have a problem putting together just an independent board, let alone making sure that, you know, it's fully represented, you know. And I personally, I mean, the main reason we put this together, because I think we all think that's BS. And you can also make it independent and make sure that it's diverse. Not that hard. Not that hard. One more question I have, and this is really speaking anecdotally because I've done thousands of interviews with C-suite management teams in the small micro nano cap space. And one really interesting observation I have, or I don't know, maybe it's interesting, I don't know, it was interesting to me, but is the fact that, you know, I've done a lot of interviews with Canadian publicly listed and private companies versus US. And it seems that more women C-level management teams that I meet are from Canadian publicly listed companies versus the US. I mean, Luisa, like, what we got to figure out what's going on here, because I mean, is there something that, and Sue and Bao, you both can speak to this as well. Actually, our two other companies that are presenting at our event that are the only two other companies that have women management teams are Canadian listed companies at our conference with Thunderbird and Manduro. So, I mean, what can the U.S. capital markets learn? I mean, look, I'm sure there's so much more that can be done as well in Canada too. I mean, no one's perfect here, but what can the U.S. do to learn from what clearly is being done better in Canada? Anybody?
Al, I'll let you start with that. Since you're
I think there's like, I know for Canada, I would say there's like two spots, Vancouver and Toronto, or on the east side. And so there's females that are involved in the various roles in Vancouver. So I'm from Vancouver, and for me, it's still not that many. I'll tell you that right now. I think it just happens to be the companies that are presenting at this conference happen to have female executives on the board and also in management. But I would still say, I mean, Vancouver is a big mining town, and I would say that there has been somewhat of a shift. It's also been imposed by regulatory aspects as well. So there is the shift, but I wouldn't say that a lot of the boards would have female representation. I don't know, Sue, if you've got the same thoughts on that, but I would say that there is some, but it's still very slow. I mean, I only know of, in Vancouver, maybe just a small handful. Right. Maybe on my one hand that I can count that are actually either board members or an executive.
Yeah, I think you're right, Val. I think it's still pretty small in Canada. I did spend a year living in the US in 2018, and I did notice a difference though in the presence of women in executive roles in the US versus in Canada. So I'm not sure the answer, Robert. That's the truth. I'm not really sure of what the answer is, but I think it could I think maybe it's something too that we look into a little bit too much. I think part of it could just be population difference. You know, it's just a bigger workforce in the US. And I loved when Luisa started. She said, her experiences have been good. Mine have also been positive. So the fact that I've often been the only woman in the boardroom and often still am, it's not necessarily signaling something negative. It's just a reality for what it is. And so I have noticed that there does seem to be a few more women in executive roles in Canada than it was in the US, but I think it's just, history and population. I don't think it's necessarily a intentional or cultural difference between the two countries.
I guess speaking of Bao's point, it does sound like there's a little bit of some sort of regulatory push at the very least, which it sounds like that, hopefully someone's listening and can push that forward as well here in the US, and making sure that already with what Luisa was saying, that, the investment, I forgot the name. I saw that same report. I'm blanking on the name, but if there can be something done at the regulatory level, just to really make sure that there's more, we just want to see more of a fair shot. At the end of the day, because there's just so much incredible talent, and it sucks that women have to work twice as hard for the same role as men. I think that's really the nature of it right now. But with that, does anybody have some final thoughts? And also, let's get everybody's website where people can go and find more information about you as well. So Luisa, take it away.
I'll just conclude by saying, just teeing off of what you just said, in terms of women having to work a lot harder than men. I think the women that are successful are the women that are not bitter about it. So I think that's very important. I do feel like I have to work harder. I do feel like I have to be more prepared. I do feel like I have more challenges and other challenges, but I'm not bitter about it. I'm honored at the opportunity. I'm excited to be whatever meeting I'm in, whatever role I'm in. And I find that the women that are bitter about it and come across that way are just not as successful as they grow through the ranks. So that's my last piece of advice, since you happen to bring that up. And in terms of my company, I think my company, Avalon GloboCare, we're NASDAQ symbol AVCO. I think we're doing some very exciting things with cancer treatments and COVID testing and vaccines. And our website is avalon-globo with an O, GLOBO care.com, avalon-globocare.com. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. And Sue, where can our audience go and find more information about you and Exro Technologies?
Please come to our website at www.exro.com. That's EXRO.com. We're traded on the CSE under XRO and on the OTCQB under EXROF.
And Bao?
You can visit our website at ElectraMeccanica.com. We're listed on NASDAQ under the symbol SOLO, SOLO. And this is an exciting time for ElectraMeccanica, as we're in the process of transitioning from a pre-production company to a production company, which we will be talking about on another interview, Bobby. So thanks again, everyone.
For sure. Well, thank you all for sharing your experiences. I'm very thankful that you've all have opened up and shared what can be done, what's happened, and how we can all do better as an industry. So thank you all again. And I look forward to talking to you all soon.
Yeah,
thank you.